Well, guys, we are now approaching game week 16. We've definitely got a very important subject to talk about when it comes to Premier League news in general. If you've been following football, I think you know what discussion that's going to be. But we're going to address the stuff in real life in a minute, but I want to focus on Fantasy Premier League first because we are now starting to get into a place where things are hotting up a little bit further. And I'll explain what I mean because we are now getting into the situation where we are starting to have the cups. Let me explain what I mean when it comes to the cups. There are leagues that go on, right? In the in the Fantasy Premier League, that every team is there. You're competing. It's all about climbing a leaderboard, and that is how things work. But we also have cups going on, and we actually technically it started last week, but this is now the week where pretty much everyone's getting involved. Our team, we got a buy into the next round. We were in the game week 16 one, but we are now into a situation where forget about leagues. Forget about the leagues. All that matters is we are in a match in the round of, hold on, let me get this right, 8,388,608 against someone from AI, obviously. And we will be hoping to do a better score than them. And if we do, then fantastic stuff. We are going to be into the next round. But that's the future. That's the future. Let's start talking about the past and then we'll talk about the present. So we're going to start off going backwards to Saturday, the 6th of December. We had Aston Villa beating Arsenal. Surprising result on that side of things. Arsenal have been solid. They've been they've been getting wins. They've been getting been unbeaten. This was a surprise. This was a big surprise. Is it a case of an Arsenal blip, or was it just Aston Villa being that good? There's also potentially discussions over Aston Villa. We will discuss all of that. Bournemouth versus Chelsea, drab 0-0. I think that's potentially a good result for Chelsea given their past couple of results. For Bournemouth, fair enough, nothing really happened. Everton getting a huge win over Nottingham Forest, that was incredible, and fair play. Everton are starting to really come good. Has the Forest revival stopped? That's another question for another time, certainly as well. Manchester City getting a win over Sunderland. Sunderland were good, but Man City were just better. That's just how things go. Newcastle United beating Burnley. Burnley actually put a good account of themselves. Newcastle at home, they should be doing that. Brentford gave Tottenham an easy time, and Tottenham got a 2-0 win. But Leeds didn't give Liverpool an easy time. It was a 3-3. I think it's a fair result. I'm a little bit salty that Leeds got themselves a last-minute equaliser, but actually, to be quite honest, when it comes to it, not a bad result for Liverpool and fantastic result for Leeds. Then we came on to Sunday. There we go. We had two matches going on in the Premier League on the Sunday. We had Brighton and Hove Albion playing against West Ham United. That was a 1-1 draw. That was actually a 1-1 draw. I don't think I expected that, but West Ham giving a good account of themselves. They should be proud of themselves. Crystal Palace beating Fulham as well. That was good for Crystal Palace. And Fulham, again, gave a good account of themselves. Nothing to be ashamed of on that. And then we finally had the Monday match, which was Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Manchester United. And let's be honest, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers. They're struggling. They are struggling. I think it's one of the things potentially to discuss. About how things have got so bad. Not in like great detail because we want to have like sort of quick fire stuff. But I've got a close friend who is a Wolverhampton Wanderers supporter, and I think that is worth talking about. We are into our next round of midweek games as well. So we went straight on into the Tuesday. We had teams playing in the Champions League, the top tier of European football. We're looking out for the English teams in this, of course. Chelsea losing 2-1 to Atalanta. Now, Atalanta are a good side, don't get me wrong. A couple of years ago, they beat Liverpool in the Europa League, the second tier of European football. They are a well-coached team. They're one of those ones that you should be beating them, but the very fact that you should be beating them means that it's actually a really challenging fixture. So, actually, Chelsea getting beaten 2-1, it's not overly surprising because of the type of team Atalanta is, but it's still disappointing for Chelsea. Liverpool getting a 1-0 win over Inter Milan, I've got to be honest, it was lucky. The penalty, yes, the Inter Milan defender was a little bit daft, but I don't think it should have been a penalty. And so, Liverpool, without Salah as well, again, we're going to be discussing that, getting that win. And actually, their results haven't been too bad, and it's worth discussing that as well. Tottenham Hotspur beating Slavia Prague 3-0. Slavia Prague used to be a really good team back in like the 80s and 90s. Not quite so much anymore. So, it's one of those historical games, and Tottenham Hotspur getting a 3-0 win. Impressive. We then go on to the Wednesday, and we had ourselves a 2-2 draw between Bayer Leverkusen and Newcastle United. I don't think it's a result that either of them should be too disappointed about either, because Newcastle have been given a good account of themselves. Bayer Leverkusen are a great team. So, fair play. By the way, I want to mention this as well. Borussia Dortmund 2-2 against Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt, a team in Norway, only just started getting into the European competitions in like the past 3 or 4 years, and they are absolutely smashing it. Borussia Dortmund, one of the top teams in Germany, 2-2 draw on that. We then had Arsenal beating Club Brugge. Club Brugge are one of those teams, yeah, they're happy to be there, is the best way of putting it. Manchester City beating Real Madrid, though, that was a shock and a surprise. And actually, we could end up with Real Madrid in a situation that could have ramifications on the Premier League. Something to have an eye on. Whether that be players at Real Madrid, whether that be managers at Real Madrid. There could be some moving going on at Real Madrid, and that's something to keep an eye out for. As of recording, we are currently keeping an eye on Europa League. It will be starting in the next 15 minutes. So also playing this week and today are the usual suspects. So we've got ourselves Nottingham Forest playing against Utrecht, a team in the Netherlands. Good team in the Netherlands as well. So, that'll be a good challenge for them. And they are actually playing in the Netherlands as well. Aston Villa, they're going to Switzerland playing against Basel. If anyone have been watching our Football Manager streams on Saturday, which we haven't done for a couple of weeks, our team of Newcastle Xamax beat Basel in the Swiss Cup. That's not realistic at all. Basel are a good team. I think Shaqiri still plays for them. So that's going to be a challenge for Aston Villa. And are there any others that I have missed? I don't think so. I think that's it for the Europa League. So we move ourselves into the Conference League. And Crystal Palace are playing. They're playing Shelbourne. So they're going to Ireland. Should be quite an easy result for them. They should do okay. So, it should be one of those where, they'll get it out their system and they'll get themselves a win. And it will give them a little bit of positivity for the weekend. So, what about the weekend? What are we coming up to? What are we going to be getting for this weekend's fixtures? Well, we start on the Saturday, and we start off with just the 2 matches at 3 p.m. because I don't think there's any Friday. No, there's no Friday. It is going to be a 3 p.m. start with 2 matches going on. That is it. And we've got Chelsea playing Everton. We've got Liverpool playing Brighton and Hove Albion. So, Chelsea versus Everton. If you're looking at this on form, Everton have got the momentum, but it is at Stamford Bridge. Do you know what? I'm going to go rogue here. I don't know why. I get the feeling Everton will get a 2-1 win here. They shouldn't. Chelsea have got basically a fortress when it comes to Stamford Bridge. That's a difficult place to go to. They are a great team. They're in the top four, I believe, or top five at the very least. But I think Everton have got a win in them. I think it's going to be 2-1. I think Grealish will do wonders. I won't have Everton players, but I will still, in my fantasy Premier League, but I'll still show respect to the team. I do think Everton will get the win here. Liverpool versus Brighton Hove Albion. Brighton are one of those sticky games to play against. I hope Liverpool get the win. I'm going to be backing for the Liverpool win, but let's talk a bit about Liverpool. Actually, on form over the past 4 or 5 games, it's not been too bad. They got the win over Inter Milan. Yes, they got a draw against Leeds United, but Leeds United's home ground, Ellen Road, is a difficult place to go to. They got a draw against Sunderland. That was a little bit more of like perhaps should have got a win, but again, Sunderland have been fantastic this season. And then before that, they had a 2-0 win over West Ham. So 2 wins, 2 draws. I mean, it's not exactly champions form, but it's certainly good European form, and it's actually something to potentially be proud of. And the momentum. So why did Salah say what he did? Give a bit of context. After the Leeds match last week, the 3-3 draw, Mohamed Salah went into the mixer. So I'll give you an idea. So, by the way, give you a bit of an idea as to how the media works, right? So after every game, they have the sort of the mandatory interviews that go on. So there is almost like a mandatory interview with someone from the coaching team. It normally is the manager, the coach, and there will be a mandatory interview with a specific person from, like, let's say, the leadership group. So most of the time, 90% of the time, it's like the captain. Every other time, it's like a significant person from the team to discuss how the performance went. Most of the time they should have played that game. So in Liverpool's case, if it's not Van Dijk, it will be someone like Szoboszlai or Robertson. Once it's been Curtis Jones, which has been fine because Curtis Jones is the local lad. He's the one that has his heart on his sleeve. He has his club on, close to his heart. So sometimes it's good to have that sort of emotional discussions, but they're the mandatory interviews. But then you have what's called the mixers. Now, the mixer is basically just the press hanging around, and if somebody from the club wants to approach them, they can. 9 times out of 10 in the mixer, they don't really get anything. It's normally interviews from like celebrities, from or discussions with other journalists. But last week, Salah decided to go to the mixer of his own accord, of his own choosing. And we won't go fully into what he mentioned, but a couple of things that he mentioned was that he feels like he's been the scapegoat of the team. He feels like he's been thrown under the bus. He feels like someone is wants him out of the club. Now, in some context, he was on the bench for 3 games in a row. I don't think he played for any of those 3 games. So that is worth mentioning. Now, this has caused quite the stir. Maybe you've heard it yourself. Interviews with Jamie Carragher, interviews with Steven Gerrard, discussing the scenario. Now, no one's interested in my opinion, but I'm going to mention it anyway. And I think it's fair to give like the full picture, the full context, the full flavour of how I feel about the situation when it comes to it. I love Salah. Love him. Right. Incredible player, incredible human being when it comes to um, outside the dressing room stuff. So um, fans, he's willing to share his love for the fans, and I think there is a sort of, when his football brain is switched off, let's say, that he is a wonderful human being, and he is an incredible talent. He is one of those ones where he can certainly be considered as someone to look back on with fondness over the years. Similar to like Thierry Henry, similar to Wayne Rooney. Not quite on the same level as like a Messi or Ronaldo, but you know, it's that sort of attitude that gets them into that position in the first place. So I can sort of get why he would feel a little bit miffed not playing for 3 games. But I think I've mentioned this earlier in the season, actually, when it comes to the Salah situation. Salah was brilliant when he had a selfless centre forward, and they're hard to come by, right? Salah's first centre forward partner was Roberto Firmino. He was so much of a selfless centre forward, people mistook him for an attacking midfielder. That was the type of guy he was. The same was true with Jota. He would go in and get the odd goal, but most of the time it was all about servicing Salah, servicing Mane, servicing whoever it was that was on the wings, so that they could be the ones getting the goals. And yes, we had Nunes, but he was struggling to score goals so much that it was all about, it was more about his assists more than anything else. That actually Salah almost took on the mantle of looking after him. And then you look at Diaz. And Diaz was a winger being played as a centre forward. So, of course, he could be in that situation where he's willing to give the space up for Salah. And so, because of those players that Salah's played with, his natural instincts is to play as a right winger going into the centre to score the goal. Almost like what Ronaldo did. Cristiano Ronaldo for Manchester United would play as a left winger going in to the point where he was considered as a striker almost, that just played wide. And the same was true when he was at Real Madrid. Now, why am I mentioning all this? Because the team's not like that anymore. Put yourself in the mindset of Ekatike or Isak. If they're on the pitch, can you really see them giving up the space for Salah? No. They want the goal themselves. They are your classic centre forward, your classic striker. They are selfish. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being selfish when it comes to football, because you need to get the goals for yourself. You need to, to build up your momentum, to get that groove going, right? Strikers are a weird breed that even when the team wins, if they haven't scored a goal, they'll feel like they failed. And so they will want to have that, put that pressure on themselves to score a goal. So guess what? That'll be their main focus. It's not that they're being mean to Salah, that's just the way that they are. And then you look at it from Florian Wirtz's position. Who do you pass to? Do you pass to the main guy from last year? Or do you pass to the guys that, with the money, they should be the main guys for the future and for this year? And actually, if you look at it, Wirtz has had a better, got closer to an assist by passing to Isak and by passing to Ekatike than passing to Salah. He passed to Salah and Salah missed. Isak at least has been hitting the target, even though he only got 1 goal, but he's been hitting the target. He's been getting that focus. And so the positive momentum is not with Salah. Now, do I think Salah is the only issue? No. Ibrahim Konate definitely has also been another issue, and I think it is something, and I think I've probably mentioned this, but if I haven't, I'll mention it now, right? I don't think it's any coincidence that the two people that arguably were the closest to Jota were Konate and were Salah. Konate in particular, by the way, was Jota's neighbour. Like, they knew each other more than the rest of the team. So then when it comes to Salah's comments themselves and him being considered a scapegoat or anything like that, before we look at the emotions of that, whether it's a disgrace or not, because I think that's been the thing that's been everyone's agreed with, let's start off with the factual matter of Salah. I think the reason why he's being benched is they're trying to work out the tactical way that the entire team will play. At the end of the day, Connor Bradley, Frimpong play in such a way that probably makes it more difficult for Salah to be himself. Trent Alexander-Arnold was putting crosses in and was, vibing alongside Mohamed Salah for so long, and it was like this sort of bounce back between themselves. Connor Bradley, he's more of your old school fullback, running ahead, but there's no real thought behind it. It's just a case of keeping the width. And Frimpong, he's basically a winger. People have been calling him a wing back. I'm sorry, he's a winger. He's not a wing back, right? He has that ability to be a winger. He's basically, when he's playing right back, he's almost looking at Salah going, that's actually where I would probably be better. And this is not a dig at Salah. It's not because Salah's performing poorly. It's because Salah's playing style doesn't work for the team anymore. And that's rough to say. So rough to say. But that is the truth. Now, is it horrible that Salah said what he said? Yes, absolutely. Mainly because this was the last thing I wanted. I had no doubts in my mind that at some point Salah would leave. But I wanted Salah to leave, not just on his own terms, but with good feelings, good vibes, right? Leaving out the front door, not the back door, is the way to call it, right? I wanted Salah to leave in the same way that Firmino left, in the same way that Thiago left, in the same way that Jurgen Klopp left, where he could be applauded off, whether that be halfway through the season or at the end of the season, of like going, yeah, he has done amazing for us. But I don't think we're going to get that. We're going to be in a situation, I mean, we're not going to see Salah in January anyway because of the African Cup of Nations. But it's going to be hard for him to get back. By the way, if he does get back and start scoring goals, fantastic. I've got my fairy tale ending. But at the end of the day, Salah was dropped for an experiment, and the experiment hasn't fully failed. So the experiment continues, and probably will continue against Brighton and Hove Albion. And I think this is going to be one of those interesting ones where the players will probably give a little bit more against Brighton to really almost like stick it to Salah and go, how dare you say that you're better than us? We're going to prove it. We're going to prove that as a team, we are better than that. So it could be interesting. Could Liverpool get another win out of this? Could this spark something for Liverpool? Maybe, but Brighton are a tricky team to be playing against for that. So, like I say, if it ends up being a draw, I don't mind that too much. Anyway, I've spoken enough about Liverpool. Let's talk about Burnley versus Fulham. Burnley, again, given a good account of themselves, I think they've been brilliant at home. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think there's going to be a goal for each. I think Wilson, again, has been doing fantastic. So I think there's going to be a goal for him. But I do think, who is it? Is it Zian Fleming? I think he could get a goal for Burnley, definitely. Arsenal versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think last week was a blip for Arsenal, so I think that they'll probably get this back, and especially playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers, because my goodness me, have Wolves been awful. And actually, when we look at it, it's been over the past few years. They've been in this sort of just about surviving stage. I remember seeing it with Sunderland actually a few years ago, where it was like they were constantly like 16th or 17th, only just surviving. And they ended up plummeting. I think they were almost in League Two at one stage, and I think Wolves can end up in that similar situation, especially when you look at the fact they haven't really invested in the squad. Wolves are one of those ones that, they're under Chinese ownership. It's the only Chinese ownership in the top 3 or 4 leagues, I think it is. And the Chinese owners just don't have the money that they used to. About 10, 15 years ago, China had all the money in the world and were investing left, right, and centre. They don't have that anymore because there's no interest from the Chinese government for the Chinese to be investing in football. It is what it is. And I worry for Wolves. I think they're going to end up going into a bit of a free fall. But anyway, that's that. Sunday matches. We've only done 4 matches so far, and we need to be rushing through these. So here are 5 more matches. So Crystal Palace versus Manchester City. Crystal Palace is a rough place to go, and Manchester City. I mean, they were good against Sunderland. Don't get me wrong. I think Sunderland has struggled away, and I think Crystal Palace are one of those ones like Sunderland. They are great at home. I'm going to go rogue. I'm going to go 2-1 winner for Crystal Palace. I think they've got it in the bank to get that win. So good on them. Nottingham Forest versus Tottenham Hotspur. Nottingham Forest was on a decent run until last week. Tottenham Hotspur was on a rubbish run until last week. Thomas Frank against Sean Dyche. It's at Nottingham Forest ground, which is the City ground. 2-2. I'm going 2-2. I think there's going to be goals from Jesus for Forest. Goals potentially for Romero, maybe? I think they're going to be headers for Tottenham Hotspur if that's the case. Then we have the big one over the weekend. Sunderland versus Newcastle United. The North East Derby, a derby we have not had in the Premier League for, 6, 7 years? This one gets fiery. This is the working man's, derby, let's say, right? Rough and ready. And Sunderland have been good at home. Newcastle, this is one of those ones. Form book goes out the window. But I am going to say this. I love Sunderland this year. And I do have someone I know who is a Sunderland fan. So, out of respect for him, who is travelling to the Stadium of Light for this game, I am going to go for a 2-1 win to Sunderland. And we've got his store in the team. West Ham United versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa buoyed by that win. West Ham United, they're getting a draw. Not too bad against Brighton and Hove Albion. Aston Villa. Could we see a title charge? What is it? 3 points they're off the top, isn't it? Or something like that? 3 or 4 points? I mean, maybe. As fans, we love it when there's a new team, as long as it's not a rival, that wins the Premier League. I would love it, apart from Everton and Manchester United, I would love it if any of those other teams that hasn't won it for a few years or even decades wins the Premier League. It makes it so exciting. And I think they'll get a win here. I think the momentum will keep up. 1-0. Simple 1-0. West Ham United have been good defensively, which makes it more difficult. But yeah, I think 1-0. Then we've got Brentford versus Leeds. Brentford, normally really good defensively. They were rubbish defensively last time. Leeds United in this situation. This is Brentford at home. And No shame on Leeds here. I think they're going to lose. I think it's going to be 1-0. I'm going to put some faith in Queven Kelleher to get a clean sheet, I think, in this. By the way, he's in my team, so spoilers. So, yeah, that's where we're going to go. And then on the Monday, we got Manchester United playing on Monday again against Bournemouth this time. I think a draw. Bournemouth are good defensively. They have been a bogey team of Manchester United over the past 2 or 3 years. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a draw for that one. And then I think it goes into the League Cup. So, yeah, interesting times. So, what are we going to do Fantasy Premier League wise? So, here is the team. Let's have a look in terms and seeing what the challenges are. Now, Daniel Munoz has a knee injury. All my Crystal Palace players have got a knee injury. Ankle injury there. Expected about 17th of January. Ouch. So we probably need to look at taking Munoz out or Salah out. We will have a look depending on the rest of the players that we've got. How much faith do we have in our defenders? So we've got Schroeder against Manchester United. I'm happy to keep him in. Pedro Porro against Forest. I think I'm happy to keep him in. Gusto versus Everton and Cash versus West Ham United. So, am I comfortable with having Cash against West Ham United with Gusto potentially coming against Everton? Yes. I think that's not too bad. Saka versus Wolves, Viets against Brighton Hove Albion. Yeah, happy to keep that. Man City plays against Crystal Palace. That's hope more than anything else. Bowen against Aston Villa. Lister against and Wilson against Burnley. So who are we going to bring in? Who are we going to bring in? Because this is now, like I mentioned at the start, it's all about the cups now. We've got to focus on that. So let's have a look in terms of transfers when we can. There we go. So, who could we potentially bring in? So, Crystal Palace got a bit of a rough patch. They've got Man City, yes. But then they got Leeds, Tottenham, and Fulham. And then they got Newcastle. Challenging times. Midfielders probably need to get more goals, to be quite honest, in our midfield if we can. I mean, we've got 0.9 million plus whatever. Semenyo for Bournemouth. Do you know what? I don't dislike. So if we wanted to bring in Semenyo, we'd have to take out Viets or Saka. And then in terms of forwards, we do have Thiago for Brentford. And Brentford! Brentford have got some good games. And they're going to be playing Wolves against Wolves soon as well. 7 million. So, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take out Bowen. We're going to bring in Thiago. I'm going to put some faith in Brentford right now. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Especially playing against Leeds. And I think that could be a really good, interesting one. Would I have Thiago as captain over Haaland? 2 points, 1 point, 13 points. Haaland. 2 points, 14 points, 2 points. Both of them are on a similar vein of form. Isidore, 1-1-2, so no on that one. Saka, 4-6-5. And Saka playing against Wolves. That's done it for me. So we'll have Saka as captain, Haaland as vice captain. I think that's what we're going to do. This is probably going to be our last week thinking about Viets and maybe bring in Semenyo next. That is what we're going to do. Now, do we Saka against Wolves? the worst team versus what's been the best team, and Saka's potentially playing. We are going to play a triple captain chip on Saka. Hopefully that gets us a boost. We will do that. That is what we're going to do. So we are hoping that Kelleher and Thiago do fantastic against Leeds. We're basically hoping for Brentford to get a win and a clean sheet. Trafford to do well against Manchester United, Cash doing well against West Ham United, Pedro Porro to do well against Nottingham Forest, Wilson to do well against Burnley, Rangers and Haaland to do well against Crystal Palace. We really need Saka to do well against Wolves. Last bit of hope for Viets against Brighton Hove Albion, and we are backing Sunderland for the derby against Newcastle. Those are my thoughts. That's my team. Love to know your thoughts, what you would do differently, what you would do the same, and your thoughts on the Salah situation, on any of the drama that's going on. And best of luck to everybody during the weekend, apart from the team I'm playing against in the Cup. And until next time, guys, all that's left to say is take care.